Hello, Namore77 here with my new world tutorials. These tutorials will be updated for Minecraft 1.4.5. Now then, to get started, I have prepared a few templates. But before we can use the templates, we must have the file that we're going to put them into. So, like always, the first file we will use is a mod underscore file. In this case, I'll be using world-gen tutorial, just to make it easy to understand. But I did forget to use source folder or package. There we go. Now then, you can ignore this package stuff, I guess, because it really isn't going to hurt anything. Because I'm using my own custom packages and such. When I move them into actual Minecraft, they'll be different. But now that we have the mod underscore file, we will open up my mod underscore template and copy the code over. And instead of writing everything from scratch, I will go through it and explain it step by step. But the first thing to do would be to fix these names. Okay, now that that name is fixed, I will go through and explain everything that's in here. Like normally with the mod underscore file, package net.minecraft.src is here. But a bit new to you may be import java.util.random. Now this is used so that we can make random variables. Okay, so now that that is done, we are going to move on to the name, something else you're used to. Then again, normally around here you will see sort of this registry for your blocks. And in here you will add stuff to your blocks like textures and names and all that. But you see, with WorldGen, we don't use either of these things. We use something completely different called public void generate surface. Now, public void generate surface does is it will call a certain chunk in the world as it's being generated, and then it will add your WorldGen to it. Now then, if you were to bump up this variable, either higher or lower, it will change the amount of time this ran. I'm going to lower mine, so that way the world will generate less, and make it generally easier on my computer. But all you have to do is change this to less than 10 or 1 or whatever it was, and then just make it how many times you want it to generate per chunk. And now that that's done, I will explain more about this. Public void generate surface, which is new to you, has 4 variables. It has a sort of world variable, and it's defined as a world, and it's called world, just without the capital. Then it has a random, which will just simply be called random. It has an integer called chunk x and an integer called chunk z. Now then, what these integers are is they are coordinate locations in the world of the chunk that's being generated. And down here we will declare new ones that take them, and it will generate them up to 16 blocks away, so the radius of a chunk. And this is our for loop, which will be used to generate it. Now then, for those of you who don't know what a for loop does, it is in three parts. We have the for. Then on the inside of the parentheses, we will have an integer, and it will equal 0. So integer k equals 0, and then it will run it while this integer is less than a certain number, which is how many times it's ran. And then this third part is how much the integer increments every time. Alright, now that you understand that, we will go inside of what the for loop is doing. It will create a new integer called randpause(x), which will equal this number up here, plus random.nextInt16. Now then, what random.nextInt16 does is it will add anywhere from 0 to 15 blocks or 0 to 15 numbers to that number, making the radius of the chunk exactly 16 blocks. Works well enough. And what we have here is the y-coordinate. And if you notice, it doesn't have chunk y up here, because we really don't need to call a y when we're generating the world. We can find that ourselves. I have one minor mistake here where I have to add a plus, but it will be fixed on the template, so don't worry about that. And then randpause(z) is sort of like randpause(x). And what we have here is a bit different. And to explain what it does is it's creating a sort of object that it calls. Now then, for this new WorldGen template is going to be the file. All the magic happens inside of that. That is what this structure will actually be. So we're going to call that file, and we're going to take a .generate method, and we're going to give it a world variable, a random, an x, a y, and a z. Simple enough. And then that for loop ends, the generate surface ends, and all that's left in the file is the public string get version, which is something you should already be familiar with. Now then, we are going to save this, because we are done with it now, and we are going to make our worldgen file. So, go ahead and make a new class, and call it whatever you like. I'm going to be calling mine worldgen tutorial. And then I will be putting the template data into it. Now, this template will have some stuff right here for you. This is stuff so that way you have what you need to start working with it. But to explain what worldgen tutorial is it will actually be where everything happens. It will add the blocks to the world. This will be where everything actually happens, where you can actually get to do stuff. Now then, as always, we have package.net.minecraft.src. We have randoms here as well, so that way we can do random stuff. Sort of like how trees will generate different heights and such. And then we have the name, which I gotta fix real quick. And I'm just gonna copy paste that. And if you're wondering how I just double clicked and then copied and pasted, I was using Control-C and Control-V. If you're not familiar with it, you should get familiar with it, because it will make coding definitely a lot easier to you. Alright, so to explain what this part is, it's just simply the name, and this is going to be a world generator file. And then it has public worldgen tutorial. I think this is code that's called whenever the file is ran, but we're not going to be messing with it. We're going to be doing the public boolean generate. Now, if you remember, I said in here that it will call the .generate method. What's happening over here? So inside of this file, we will have the world variable we're talking about, the random, and the 3 ints. Now, you may notice something kind of different here. The integers here are suddenly I, j, and k. Well, when it is called from here, the names don't have to stay the same. Now, I'm used to using I, j, and k instead of x, y, and z. It's just something I'm kind of familiar with. You can really change these to whatever you want, to what you want to reference them to. But right now, they are just simply x, y, and z, or I, j, and k. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take this integer right here and paste it right here. So that way we have access to our planks block. And if you're wondering how this works, is it's going to take the integer, and since integers are always whole numbers, and it's going to be referenced by planks, and it doesn't equal a number. If you're wondering how it gets that number, what it's doing is it's going into the main block file, it's finding the planks, and getting their block ID. So it's getting the block ID of planks, and we're going to be adding it into the world with that. The reason we use the word planks is that way we don't have to use numbers to place our blocks everywhere, and we can actually understand what we're doing. And this line of code right here we will not be using right now. I will explain it later, but it is something that will be really handy to you. But in this case, we'll be using world.setBlock with notify. But before we get that, we have to create our for loop. So what you're going to do is type for, create some parentheses, and put integer incrementer equals 0. Add a semicolon, and then say incrementer is less than, and you can put any number you want here, but I'm going to put 5 plus random dot next int, let's see, 17. And then I'm going to add another semicolon, and then say incrementer plus plus. And incrementer is kind of hard to type, but it works pretty well in this case. And if you're wondering what this is right here, this sort of confusing part, is it's going to say is that it's going to run this file 5 times, and then it can run up to 16 more times. And the reason why I put 17 here instead of 16 is because randoms count like they don't start from 1, they start from 0. So it's actually going to say 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's like, instead of what we would say, which will be 1, 2, 3, 4. So you're going to want to put it one number over the number you want to count to, since it starts at 0. But now that we finished this line, you're going to want to hit enter and put inside of your squirrely brackets. And then, if you remember up here, we copied this. Go ahead and copy it again if you didn't. And you can paste it in. So we now have access to our blanks block we're going to be adding to the world. And every time this runs, it will place it at the X value, the Y value, and the Z value. But then again, we don't want to place one block into the world anywhere from 5 to, what was it, 21 times? We don't want to just add one block in the exact same place that many times. So here's a little trick you can do. Take the J value, which would be Y, hit it, put a space, plus, and then type in incrementer. And I made a bit of a typo there. Go ahead and fix it. I just fixed it. Alright. Since every time this for loop is ran, incrementer is added in by 1, every time this line of code is ran, incrementer will also be added by 1. So every time this is ran, the Y value will be increased by 1, and the block will be increased by 1. So it's going to create this sort of rising pillar into the air. And I'm about to test the code, but one last thing to say is that since this is equal to a whole number, there are lots of things you can do with it. But if you want to change the type of block, you can go into net.minecraft.src and find block.java. And inside of here, you will find the block IDs. If I remember correctly, they are the first number. And you can actually reference the numbers, or you can take the name and put them in on this place. So, to sort of show this, I'm going to copy cobblestone over. And I'm going to paste that in. I'm also going to paste it there and paste it there. So it's going to be putting cobblestone blocks instead of wooden planks. So now that that's done, we're about ready for a test run. But one final thing. Well, actually a couple final things. If you notice, I made a bit of a typo here, and we don't want to recompile with an error. So I'm going to have to rename this, if I can. Yeah, it looks like it's going to be 1 minute while I rename this. I'll be right back. Sorry about that, I'm back. Now then, I have fixed the file name error, and now that that is done, I'm going to go over here. If you remember, this is the file that we're going to be calling. So, instead of it saying template, I had to change it over to tutorial. That way we will actually be generating the right file. And now that that is done, this code is ready to be put into the game and tested. So I'm going to be taking my mod_worldgen tutorial. Looks like I have an extra one in here somewhere. Yeah, I still have the wrong typo one. Just ignore that. And now that I have both of them, I'm going to copy them, and I'm going to put them into my Minecraft. So I'm going to paste in there. And if you're wondering why I have all of this down here, and I'm not coding inside of Minecraft, and why it's in this custom package and all that, is because I don't like having my code inside of Minecraft while I'm working on it. I'd like to have a stable backup that I'm able to reference to. So that's why I have my code outside, and I had to paste it inside. So just to make sure I paste it, I'm going to do it again. Alright, good, it's pasted in. And now I'm going to run the client. And I've already turned down my settings, so hopefully the video won't lag too much. And now I'm going to simply go in and create a new world. And one thing about WorldGen is it will make the world take a little bit longer to load, because it's generating more blocks. But if you're not making too massive of a WorldGen file, it shouldn't be too significantly bad. And a little bit of a buggy spawn. And my game's lagging a little bit at first because it's generating everything in. But as you can see now, there's cobblestone all over the place. And I'm not sure exactly how many there is, but I think this is one per chunk. And like this one is 3, 4, 5, 6 tall. And this one over here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 blocks tall. So that for loop with the random in it is working, and they are different lengths, and they are in different locations all over the world. And that about wraps up this tutorial. I guess now would be a good time to say, if you have any questions, anything you would like help with, if you have any questions about the video, anything like that, just feel free to PM me and I will try my best to help you out. Anyways, thanks for watching. Have a good day.